When feedback conversations don't go well, we conclude that we were right to see them as dangerous. What we don't see is that the problem was not in what we raised, but in what we didn't. More often than not, the missing piece is emotions. Emotions are central to the feedback model, so it's crucial that we not only have access to them, but actually express them instead of using one of the many justifications for staying silent. For example, I shouldn't feel blank. I shouldn't feel mad, or I shouldn't feel sad, or I shouldn't feel awkward or anxious. Are there certain feelings that, almost irrespective of the situation, you think you shouldn't have? I shouldn't feel envious, jealous. I shouldn't be angry about this person. I shouldn't feel hurt. Some of these thoughts may come from our upbringing when we were children, the values we hold, or the image that we'd like to portray. Or perhaps we're concerned that if you allow yourselves to feel those emotions, they will overwhelm you or you will act on them. Again, the important distinction is between how you feel and what actions you take in response to those feelings. You have little choice about the first part. What you feel, those are reactions, since feelings come up whether you want them or not. But you have a choice about the second part, the actions you take, the reactions you make when you're feeling something. Now, if you're annoyed at a friend, okay, it's one thing to acknowledge that you're annoyed, but it's another thing to actually retaliate because of that annoyance. Recognizing that actually gives you options. You can perhaps reflect why you were annoyed at that moment, and having that insight might be enough for the annoyance to actually go away. Or you can probably tell that person that you're actually annoyed, which is another option. Okay? Simply stating that you could feel a little bit better if he or she would not be so annoying to a certain degree. Of course, mentioning the objective reality as to why you feel annoyed about that person. Or another option would be you just feel upset and be angry and let that emotion fester inside you. So if you think about it, having feelings, there's nothing wrong with it. That's part of human nature, that's natural. What makes a difference is the fact that any reaction that you do in response to those feelings, that is the more important bit. Another reason why we want to stay silent is sometimes we say, I can't justify my feelings in this context. You're trying to put a rationalization as to why you're feeling what you're feeling. Now, let's assume for a moment that you are working on a project with a colleague, and today he seems to be very difficult to deal with. You think maybe I should give him a break because he probably had a hard day today, or maybe he had a conversation with our boss and that didn't end well. Okay, but then again, because of that colleague and how he has been working with you, you continue to feel irritated. Okay. And now, because you've not really addressed that, then you are going to feel a little bit more irritated. It sticks to you and you really can't let it pass anymore. It's like bottling up a boiling water inside a kettle. If you don't let the steam out, okay, you'll probably explode. Now, whether you understand why someone is behaving the way they are or has a logical explanation, okay, it's not relevant to the legitimacy of your feelings. In this case, whatever the circumstances happen around you, if you feel that way, remember your feeling is valid, regardless of what happens. And again, going back to the earlier point, it's your reaction to those feelings that count the most. Of course, trying to explain it away and try to justify, okay, I mean that's all part and parcel of making sure that when you start dealing with this person, you can have a more constructive interaction. But at the same time, the fact that you felt it, okay, that's something that you can't deny, or that's something that you can't dismiss. Which is why we say that conversation feedback about feedback is the start of any conversation. Another reason why we stay silent about emotions is that we sometimes say, I'm sure this feeling will pass. It will go away. Feelings are fleeting. I won't feel this forever. Well, that's true. Some feelings do pass, but others may linger. And even if you choose not to raise your annoyance and the feelings dissipate, let's say within the next 30 minutes, that doesn't mean that it has entirely disappeared. Okay. Maybe they're just there, someone lurking behind the scenes, parked somewhere behind an empty parking lot inside your brain. And with the slightest trigger, can actually blow things up. Okay. As they say, pay now or pay later. So if you don't really address the feeling at that moment and you try to bury it and you say, it will probably go away, then we're actually not solving that problem. Now, another justification for staying silent about emotions is that, well, whatever I'm feeling right now, they seem to contradict each other. So it must be my problem. Well, when it comes to emotions, understand that people can feel multiple emotions at the same time. And they're not mathematics, wherein a good emotion will nullify a bad emotion, right? That they zero out. That doesn't work that way. If you feel a good emotion and a bad emotion at the same time, both of them are there. Okay, they're not contradicting each other. They're not nullifying each other out. Okay, so that's one thing that we have to understand. Both of these feelings, or there could be other feelings at the same time, could be two, three, four at the same time. That's how complex human beings we are, right? They're all true. Now, instead of withholding your feelings, I think you need to express both of them. Of course, expressing them is perhaps another story, and that is something that we want to train. But the point here is that we should express them rather than just simply saying silent about them. Doing so results in being better known. Again, part of self disclosure through both the emotions themselves and their intensity, because both say something important about you. Okay. And remember that feedback is about data. Okay? Emotions, okay, convey data as well. So let's not try to think that just because I have these emotions and they seem to be conflicting with one another, I might be a problem, therefore I won't disclose it. Now, another reason why we stay silent about our emotions is that, whenever you feel mad, you have this censoring mechanism that you don't trust yourself, that you might say something bad, that you might end up hurting the other person. So I'm so mad, I don't trust myself to speak. Okay, what happens when the other person does something that just makes you furious? Okay, you're so angry that any concern for them has just flown out of the window. You think, I'm so upset. I don't give a damn why they did that. I don't trust myself in what I might say. Now, take a step back. Do you think you can say that sentence and ask for 20 minutes to cool down and then talk about it? That lets the other person know what is going on for you. You see, you don't really have to express it all at once. Sometimes it's also a matter of timing, a matter of self regulation. And more often than not, it doesn't really have to require a very long period of time. Sometimes all it takes is 20 minutes. Okay. Now, if 20 minutes may not seem to be manageable, you probably need more time. Okay, give yourself time, like 30 minutes. But I'm sure, within the hour, the intensity of whatever it is you're feeling would probably have significantly dropped. Okay. You want your emotion to be manageable. You just don't want it to evaporate or even fester further. Definitely, the emotion will still be there. All you need to do is just to address the intensity at that moment. And then when things are a little bit manageable, then you speak up about your emotion. Now, one emotion that is especially difficult to manage, as you probably be aware of, is anger. Most people don't realize that anger is a secondary emotion. It's not a primary emotion, right? It's not an immediate reaction to something. You're angry because it is rooted in something else prior to the anger. For example, when someone feels too exposed to express certain emotions, such as hurt, rejection, or envy, it is often safer to express anger. So people are angry, but really underneath it, there's something else. And that is the root cause of to why they are reacting that way. Well, this is probably true for men, But this is something that is globally observed, whether you're male or female. Okay, the transfer from a more basic vulnerable feeling to anger can be so automatic that the person who is upset is typically unaware of the underlying feelings. What is observable is that that person is angry, but really the reason why that person is angry is because of a more uh, enduring, perhaps, or a prior emotion that is the immediate reaction of what happened. Okay? But as you probably are well aware, expressing anger can lock both parties into defensive positions, which wouldn't be helpful in any interaction. Now, this is not to say that expressing anger is never appropriate. Okay? And we do think it is important to allow ourselves to feel it. Of course, even though it's a secondary emotion, it's still an emotion and it still needs to be acknowledged. In fact, it can be very useful to recognize anger if you can resist moving to blame and accusations and explore what lies underneath it. Okay? Your emotions are your emotions. And if you're feeling angry, you're feeling angry. Acknowledge that. What's important is whether it's anger or any other emotion, try to understand why those emotions are bubbling up as they are.